Yo, what's going on, snipers, and welcome back to our Albuquerque Aliens Draft Glory franchise mode here in NHL 25. So in last episode, we kind of had a little bit of a controversial episode because we did let go of some people that maybe we shouldn't have, but at the same time, I think it's still going to be a good season for us because we do have a pretty good looking roster going into one of our final seasons here in Albuquerque. Now, we did let go of a couple of huge pieces. The big one, obviously, was goaltender in Boris Malkin, who decided to sign with the St. Louis Blues on a pretty big term contract. As you can see, $11.745 million with a lot of clauses and stuff like that. And we decided to controversially keep the older goaltender in Giunta. So it's going to be really interesting to see if this team still simulates well. Obviously, with Giunta as a starter, Giunta has always been that starting guy for the most part up until last season. So I think our team still looks pretty good for the most part. As you can see, like, we literally have a pretty good solid forward group again. Our defensive group is still relatively strong. And then we still have a pretty solid 1-2 punch. Like, Mathers isn't that bad as a backup option, I don't think. So I'm going to be very excited to see if this team is actually going to be able to make it back to the playoffs. I think it should be easily able to be done. But I'm not too sure on how we're going to do as a team this season compared to last season. So even if we barely scrape our way into the playoffs, hopefully that gives us a better chance to go further into the postseason. But anyways, before we get into simulating another season and seeing how this team does, let's get in your guys' comments and see what you guys have to say about last episode, and then we will get into making sure our lines are fully ready to go and starting up the season sim. So the first comment is from Garage TV, who says, "Damn, at this point you're keeping bad players with bad contracts. Definitely getting hard to watch, but hope the season goes good for you." And I don't think those contracts that I gave out in the offseason, to be honest, are that bad. I think they're actually really good. We're going to definitely take a look at contracts around the league and see by comparison who the highest paid goaltender is, that type of thing. But I think he's talking about the Bell contract. The Bell contract to me is not really that bad. I think it was important to have Bell back over somebody like Tulipov. 12.25 really is not terrible in terms of contracts nowadays. At this point in time, there's probably people making $20 million. We know that our former defenseman Tuzolino, who left to Florida numbers of years ago, he ended up making close to $20 million or over $20 million, I think. So I don't think it's a huge problem if we give a guy 12.25. I think that's not realistically that bad. And then also Giunta, $8.7 million is not a lot of money for a starting goaltender. He's also making less than Malkin. Malkin would have cost us probably a lot more, I think, long term. And also, I just feel like Giunta's the better goaltender of the two. So I think those are the two contracts that he's kind of referring to as bad players with bad contracts. I don't think those guys are bad players, and I don't think that's so bad contracts. Now, let's go for fun and go to the player search function. We're going to take a look at how much people around the league are getting paid in terms of goaltenders and all that stuff. So let's first start off with forwards and see who the highest paid players as a forward are in the entire league, just for fun. So if we head on over to here, the highest paid forward is this Tyrell guy who's an 84 out of 31. He's making $24.5 million. Holy crap. Okay, I didn't expect it to be that high of a contract. This guy must have had a crazy year a few years ago or something, but $24 million and only being an 84 is outrageous. He also has a no movement clause as well. That might be one of the highest player salaries I've seen in this game. What did this guy do a few years ago? Let's see. 109 points and then just dropped down to 71 points. Oh, boy. So he got paid based on that 109-point season, probably. Oh, my goodness. That's quite the drop-off. Yikes. But there's also some other guys making $22 million, $20 million. So if you compare that to some of the forwards on our roster, I don't think any of our forward contracts are that bad. Because, there's a ton of guys making over $15 million on the offensive side of things. Now, defensively, I don't know who the highest paid defenseman is in the league. Let's take a look at that. It's Roberts in Toronto. Okay, I could have expected that. And Bissonnette's also up there. $15 million, and the highest paid is $18 million for an 86 at 32. So if you compare that to what we just paid to our top defenseman in Bell, it's not that bad, to be honest. Bell is one of the better defensemen in the league, and he's making 12.25. I would rather that over paying a guy like $18 million as an 86. So I think that contract is not that bad. He's only making $2 million less than Bissonnette, so maybe that's a bit of an argument there because Bissonnette's a fantastic offensive defenseman, but Bell does bring good defense. So I think for him being a DFD, I think it's an okay amount of money. But that's quite expensive, some of these guys. So forwards are definitely the most expensive thing so far. I'm curious on the most expensive goaltender in the league at the moment, because that's the one that's going to be interesting the most. So if we sort by salary, the highest paid goaltender is Strudwick, who was just a free agent, if I remember right. $16 million for 4 years for a starting goaltender. So if we look at the comparison, Malkin is a top 10 paid goaltender in the league right now at $11 million, which means that $8.7 million contract we gave to Gionta is pretty damn good. Because of the fact he's won so many Vezinas and all that stuff, he's been a pretty consistent goaltender at times. So, yeah, he's making literally right around the same as his former backup goaltender, former starting goaltender in Spezza. So, I honestly don't think our contract's that bad when you look at somebody like Strudwick, who's making literally like double him almost in cap space. Now, Strudwick also has a no movement clause, which is quite crazy for a starting goaltender to have, too. But, damn. How good was he last season again? 923 in Boston, 929 in the postseason. Okay, I could kind of see why he got paid the big bucks, but at the same time, he might not be that good considering he's already 32. But yeah, there is the biggest contracts in the league at this point in time, just in case you guys wanted to know about that and compare our contracts to them, basically. The next comment is from Michael Dose, who says, cutting Malkin was tough, but I think it necessary as you did a great job extending defensive contracts. And yet, that was another thing in terms of cutting Malkin. It did help us be able to afford to bring back Bell and still keep a good defensive core intact. We're going to have to be even spending more money next offseason because McLeod's contract comes to an end. So I think it's important to obviously cut players that are just going to be cost effective to us down the road. And yeah, I think doing that might help us out a lot in terms of the salary cap we have for future off seasons. Obviously, we don't have a lot of seasons left, but I think Gionta is still going to simulate good, and I think obviously this helps us, like I said, with the salary cap situation, especially when like Kolar's is up for renewal at the end of the season. He wants, like right now, it's looking like 12.625. I'll probably wait till the offseason to give him an extension, but yeah, he's going to end up being a really high paid player for sure, just to keep him intact with the rest of the roster. And some of you guys might not agree with bringing him back necessarily, but at the same time, I want to keep guys here till they retire. And the last and final comment is from Sour Taco, says, you made the right decisions with your biggest players, especially the goalies. You can't run a tandem of a 90 and an 88, as it wouldn't be fair to whomever is the backup. You're a little heavy on the bottom six, and Stillman and Malak shouldn't probably be in the AHL, but it's not a huge deal at this point in time. And yeah, that's the one thing that kind of sucks is we have guys that are listed as fourth liners and stuff that we're gonna have to send down to the AHL to start off the season, just because we have like too much kind of like bottom six type of players. So if we look at the AHL at the moment here, you can see that we sent them Malak and Stillman. Both of them are going to get a chance to play with Cogliano. Maybe that helps Cogliano grow into being even a better NHLer for us next season. Obviously, Cogliano probably should be already in the NHL, but there's not really a way for me to get him into the lineup. So we probably will keep him down there to start this year. There's a chance maybe he gets a chance in the playoffs, but we'll see when we get to that. So just wanted to make sure we had guys in all their proper roles, like these depth forwards and that type of thing. So should help us out having guys actually listed as depth forwards rather than guys listed as fourth liners and potentially complaining due to ice time. So I think we are pretty much ready to go. I'm pretty much happy with how this roster is set up. Also, another thing that's really nice about this team, I'm pretty sure, if I remember right, let me actually go to the coaching staff. I feel like we had a good scheme fit with our current head coach, if I remember right. Let's take a look and see. Nielsen, 63. Actually, that's a bit lower than anticipated. Maybe let's check in on the other coaches just for an extra thing, just to see if the other ones would be a better fit as a head coach. Like, Belis, what are you? 68. Oh, man. Okay, so maybe we'll have a different coach this year, actually, based on that. 68 so far is definitely the highest. What about Baines? Baines is a 59. So, yeah, Baines is definitely not the guy that's going to be head coach for sure. Belis is going to be maybe the head coach unless the chemistry is a little bit weird, and it will make Nielsen the associate. So let's take a look at the lines again and just see the chemistry with this other coach. If need be, we might have to change back to the other coach. But it makes it just basically a lot of +1s on the forward side of things. Defensively, looks actually a lot stronger. I do like the defensive chemistry a bit more. I was debating about putting Petterman into the top 4, and I can still do that now. Hey, you know what? We'll go with that instead, so that way Petterman doesn't complain about his ice time. Aside from that, let me just take a look at the special teams here. Looks okay on that first unit. Ooh, that second unit still has -3. Yeah, this coach still doesn't really work well with our power play. That's the only thing. So I guess maybe I would go to the other coach. Maybe. But I do like our 5-on-5 look on side of things. I mean, I could make us focus on our special teams during the preseason. You know what? Let's keep it with this coach and just see, even if the power play has bad chemistry, if we could simulate well. I don't know why Risto's on the wing instead of Kohlers. That's kind of strange. Let's go with that. But yeah, let's check and see if this team actually gets similarly good with a bad penalty kill or something like that. Just because our bad power play, I should say, because honestly, we have nothing to lose at this point. So let's anyways get to the preseason. We'll take a look and see if our team could improve maybe on the power play, because we could always maybe scheme fit some of the players on the roster a little bit, but not too sure if I'll do that or not. But yeah, let's get through the preseason, just see how we do in the preseason, and then we'll actually get ourselves set up for another season fully, just to make sure everything's right. So let's do a preseason focus of special team power play. Yeah, because the power play didn't have really good chemistry. Normally I do 5v5 focused all the time. I think the power play is somewhere where I want to focus on a little bit here, just because of that chemistry. So let's do that and see if that'll help out or not. And in terms of season goals, apparently we should be good enough to make it for the cup, in the cup finals again this season, which is kind of surprising. But we'll see if this team's able to make a good little run this season again. So let's go through this preseason part, and then we will see if maybe it's the right call. We'll simulate 10 games and see if this coach is the right one, if our power plays are struggling or something like that, and then maybe we'll change up our coaching staff if our power play is not doing well. But I don't want to I don't really care too much if my special teams are doing good if we're doing good 5-on-5, really. So 3-3-3 in the preseason, or 3-3-2, I should say. Why don't I say three times? I don't even know. But in terms of the preseason, we allowed a lot of goals, but it doesn't really matter. It's just the preseason. So we'll see if we actually do better in terms of the regular season. So let's simulate 1 month, and then we will see if this coach is the one that we want to have for us this season or not. Like I said, we could always go to the other 63, but I feel like the 63% is a little low. 68% might give us a better simulation, even with a bad special teams. So let's go to the 31st, and we'll take a look and see if we should keep this lineup or not. So far, we start off the season with a loss and a win. All right. Toronto is another loss. Oof. Tough loss there. Dallas is a win. A little bit inconsistent to start off the year. A little bit. There's a win, 6-1. All right. So we do have some good offensive games so far. There's a 6-4 win. Carolina. Another win. Buffalo is a loss. 5-3 in our first 8. That's not too bad. It's not too bad. I do want to see what the special teams are doing after 8 games, though. So right now we are scoring 14th. We're 19th in goals against, 25th on the power play, 30th on the penalty kill. Yeah, this coach doesn't seem to do well for the special teams. But I don't know if we have a better option for the head coaching job out there, really. That's the only thing. He dropped down to a 67. Let me demote him for a second here. I just want to see what Nielsen would fit again. Nielsen, 63. I feel like 63 is kind of low. I don't know if there's any other coaching options out there for us as a head coach. But we'll take a look here briefly just to see if there's any coaches out there that might help us out a little bit more so. Zucker's a 62. That's not great enough. 49 on the next guy. Damn. That's not good. Let's actually just go NHL head coaches to make it a bit easier. There's only 4 options right now. So we might have to just keep running this for the time being. 60 and 57. Yeah, I think we'll just run with the 68 for the time being. But if a team fires a head coach, we'll definitely take a look into that coach and see if there may be a better coach for our team. because so far it's been a little bit inconsistent. We have a winning record, so I'm not going to complain too much, but I think the rest of the season we should be able to still find our game a little bit more. Hopefully those special teams actually do good. I know the chemistry's not good on them, but they have good players on them. They should be able to produce okay. So let's go another month and see what we do in the month of November. And like I said, then we'll maybe look into some more coaching adjustments if a coach gets fired from another team. Start off the month with 2 extra frame wins, which is nice. A 7-4 win over the... Okay, so far 4-game winning streak to start off this month. It's looking good so far. 4-2 loss to Seattle, so that's our first loss of the month. St. Louis we end up winning against, so that's against Malkin of goaltenders. As Maximilian Kopitz has been injured with a sprained ankle. He's a bottom 6 guy. I'm going to go replace player on that. Game against Ottawa, we win that as well. I hope the St. Louis Blues don't make the playoffs this year because, like, if we run into Malkin in the postseason and we end up losing, I just know that I'm going to get some comments that are going to be like, see, you should have kept him. But I just hope that they don't end up making the postseason. So Alvin Ashton got to play a few of his first NHL games there, so that's kind of nice. Good to get those guys a chance in the NHL. Kopitz comes back in. Wow, Comrie jumped up to an 85. I don't even know how Cashman's one of our lower-end centers because he's been simulating one of the best out of this team the last few years. So I'm kind of worried that he's going to just drop off in production completely, but he might end up being like the first-line center next season if Risto retires. Comrie could be a top 6 center next season as well. So we'll be interested to see what this team's looking like when we get into the next year as well. So far, this team's doing really good this month, though. We are losing some games, but we're winning a lot more than losing, so I don't think I need to really change too much. 16-6-1. We are first place, or tied for first place, I should say, in our division. The Blues are actually doing pretty damn good as well. They are 16-6. We are 16-6-1, so we did beat them, though. I don't know if Malkin was in net that game, but we did beat them in one of our meetings already, despite them being really good, so it's going to be interesting. Maybe we have Malkin's number at least in terms of stuff. But let's take a quick look here again at the updated team stats. I don't want to see the stat leaders, but it doesn't really matter too much at this stage. Currently, we are 6th in goals for, so we're one of the better offensive teams. We're 10th in goals against, so that's not too bad. We are 19th on the power play. God damn. And we're 7th on the penalty kill. So our penalty kill is doing really good with this coach. Our power play, not super good. But we're good enough 5-on-5, so that's not a huge issue. And then, goals against were pretty good, so I don't really have any issues right now at the moment. Like, the power play could be better, obviously. Maybe with a different coach it would be better. But at the same time, it's not necessarily something we need to necessarily address right now. So if we need to address it, we'll make line adjustments accordingly. But let's go another month, see how we do in December. But so far, so good. So far, so good. We don't necessarily need to win the President's Trophy this year. As long as we just get into the playoffs, I think we have a chance to win the Cup this year. Because this roster is still good. We have one of the stronger defensive cores probably in the league. We have a good goaltender. We have, obviously, some good forwards. Not as good of a forward core as we did, obviously, when we had Staubitz and such. But this team's having a good defensive month, it looks like. Because we are allowing a lot of games with only 1 goal against. Like, look how good defensively we're playing this month. God damn, I think our defensive numbers are going to go way up just because of that month. Obviously, those last 2 games kind of outliers, but most of those games, we only allowed 1 goal in. Because we got a shutout there. We allowed 2 goals. We allowed 2 goals. We allowed 1 goal, technically, because that's a shootout loss. We allowed 1 goal, 1 goal, no goals, 1 goal, 1 goal, 1 goal. Then these last 2 games, we allowed 11 goals. But I think our defensive numbers probably improved drastically that month. 25-8-2. We were the 10th best defensive team. Where are we now? Where are we now? Let's see. We are the 3rd best defensive team. So a very good month defensively has us back into being one of the better defensive teams in the NHL. All right, I think we got to honestly just keep on rolling the same lineup for now. I don't think I've seen anybody lose morale so far, so I think our ice time stuff is good. Let's keep it rolling. Let's keep it rolling. Game against Nashville to start off January is another bad defensive game, so 3 bad defensive games in a row, but we do respond with a win over the Kings and the Canes and also the Sabres. Yeah, this is looking like another good year, and of course we do get an injury to Cashman, back spasms for the guy. Let's go edit lines manually on that, considering that's a top 6 injury. So I guess we'll move Comrie into the top 6. Kopitz will take over as the third-line center since he's a face-off type of guy. And I will give a chance, I guess, to Enroth maybe on this unit just because he hasn't played any games yet in quite a while, I don't think. And then power play, let me just take a look at this for a second here. And Enroth could get some power play time. I don't really care too much about that, so let's keep on simulating. It's not too long-term, but Enroth is going to get a chance to play some games here, which hopefully he does well at as a decent depth option. And Kopitz was never injured, so at least that's good. At least it was only like a day-to-day thing for him, because or else we would have had to put in another center to that spot. But yeah, it's looking good this season. Like, I know we're having some games where we're not playing great, but yeah, we don't necessarily need to light the world on fire this season. So Kopitz will move back over to right wing. Comrie will come back down to the third line, and Enroth will come on out for Cashman, who is back to full health. All right, so let's continue to simulate. Game against Seattle, 3-1 loss. Okay, we're having some bad games here and there, but like I said, we don't need to necessarily win 60 games in a season. We did just lose to St. Louis in a shootout, so if you're keeping tabs on games against Malkin, there you go. Tampa, there's a 6-1 win, so a little bit of a rough patch there. 4 straight losses. 5 losses in the last 6 games going into that last game there. But then that win over Tampa is really nice. I mean, Tampa's not doing too good, so it makes sense. But a little bit of a hiccup, but we're still 31-13-4, which still has us as first place in the Central Division. Now, what's kind of interesting is the Blues have dropped off to the wild card spot. So maybe they do end up missing this season potentially. I mean, they are 5 points up on a team that's not in the playoffs. And they are tied kind of with the Oilers, so they might end up missing potentially. If they end up missing the playoffs, I will be kind of surprised because I thought Malkin could kind of carry them back into the postseason, but maybe not the case. So Andronov, one of the young goaltenders in the AHL, has been injured. Let's just go replace player. But yeah, so far so good with this season. So far so good. Let's keep it going. Let's keep it going. See what we do in the month of February, but yeah. I've had no problems, really. Like I said, there's been a couple of hiccups, but we don't need to win like 20 games in a row. We could literally just get into the playoffs just barely if we want to, and I will be okay with that too. So Langlois will come back out as the 2 young elite goaltenders will still play net in the AHL. That top line is really good in the AHL. Like, it's definitely too good for the AHL. That second line's almost too good for the AHL. But at least we have options to call up if we need to for the playoffs. So if we make the playoffs and we have somebody super badly underperform, Malock, Cogliano, Stillman, even Krejcik and Newberry could come up. Maybe even Jitnik. So we do have options in the minors in case of problems. Also, Johnson maybe gets a chance on defense if we run into problems. I like the fact that we have some good depth at least to both our NHL and AHL lineup. So let's see here. New York is an 8-3 loss. Oof. I was probably Mathers in net for that game because I can't see Gionta really allowing 8 goals in a game, but maybe I can. Game against Boston, 4-3 win. Nice. All right. I'm curious on how good Malkin's doing in St. Louis. Like, is he playing up to his ability he was with us, or is he doing much worse because St. Louis isn't as strong as a team as us? I don't know. Robertson's been injured with a strained hamstring. That's kind of a long injury. It's like for a week or so, but that's kind of one I don't want to see. Let's just go replace player on that. It's not too long term, I guess. It's only for a week, I think. Game against Washington to wrap up the month is a 3-2 win. So 40-18-4. Like, this team is still simulating fantastically, even with losing Tulipov, with losing, obviously, Malkin. Who else did we lose this offseason? I think there was another player. Oh, yeah, Doig, too. Like, we've been okay still. 40-18-4 has us not in first place in the league. The Sharks are absolutely cruising this season, which means they're definitely a first-round exit. They're 48-9-4. God damn, that might be one of the best seasons I've seen so far. Like, they're on pace. There's still like 21 more games from the season. They might hit 70 wins this year if they keep it up. Just crazy. Wow. I don't think they're going to hit 70 wins based on, like, just I've never seen a team win 70 games, but they might have one of the best seasons in NHL history if they keep that up. So shout out to the Sharks, who are probably going to be one of the favorites in the Western Conference. But since they win the President's Trophy, probably Maybe they're going to be a first-round exit. All right, let's go to the trade deadline as well. Let's go buyer and go continue simulating. We are going to take a look and see if any former players got dealt just for fun. I don't know if any players are really still playing, but we might as well take a look anyways. Colorado we beat on the deadline 3-1. Nice. All right, so I don't really want to see any team leaders, but I'm going to quickly go through this so I could get to the activity feed. Boobadoo, that's good. Player pick and trading. Let's see. Any former guys I remember getting dealt. There's a guy named Stelwitz got traded away. It's funny. Any guys that used to play with us that I haven't heard their name in a while. Let's see. Or maybe a guy that was with us just last season or something like that. Not seen anybody so far, at least. Maybe some of these guys we played against in like the playoffs and such like that in the past, but I do not recognize a lot of these names. Yeah. No former players got dealt. Interesting. We'll go back to the calendar and continue to simulate. I am curious on our stat lines here. But, yeah, we're definitely going to be a playoff team. There's no question about it. But realistically, how long are we going to be a playoff team for? Are we going to be a first-round exit? Are we going to make it to the finals this year? Like, I honestly don't know what to expect with this team once we get to the postseason. So, Robertson comes back in. Robertson's been so good in terms of growth and all that. Like, I think this guy's been a great replacement for Doig. Doig was, I think, a grinder as well, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't he? I feel like he was. If he wasn't, then so be it. But Robertson's been a really good replacement in that top 6 role. So, hopefully he has some pretty good stats this season. And obviously, like, I think he's an RFA this offseason, so we might have to give him a good little contract, but that's all right. Because he's one of those next generation players for this team, basically. Like, if there was another 25 years after this, he'd be leading a charge potentially, right? So, but yeah, we might hit 50 wins this season, which is not necessarily what I was expecting to get 50 wins, but this team is good enough for 50 wins, so I could definitely see it too. And that's when you wish you kind of still had Malkin. An upper body injury to Gionta. He will be back for the playoffs, and it's only for like a week or just over a week. But we are going to have to rely on Mathers as our starting goaltender. Langlaw's been scratched in the AHL, so we'll call him up as the backup because might as well give him a chance somewhere. But yeah, Langlaw and Mathers, who were running the AHL last year as our 2 goaltenders for now, not necessarily ideal. But at least it gives them an opportunity to kind of prove themselves maybe a little bit more. So there you go. It's a good team in front of them, so they might be able to simulate decently. Game against Florida is going to be a shootout loss. Calgary is a loss as well. Oh no, now we're on a kind of a little bit of a downwards trajectory, but it's likely because of the goaltending. Yeah, we've lost now a total of 5 straight games, but maybe going into the playoffs on a losing note is okay. So we already have clinched a playoff spot, so we don't need to worry that much. 4 more games here this week. St. Louis again. And Gionta's back. All right. He is back, so that's good news. So we will send Langlaw down. How did Langlaw do up here? Did he even play any games? He did, and he was really bad, which makes sense. He's not an NHL type of goaltender, so we had to call him up, though, just to give him an opportunity. He doesn't play in the AHL anyways, so might as well give him a chance, right? But maybe he's the type of goalie that could come into the playoffs and be a cheese goalie for us in the NHL if, for some reason, Gionta's not playing good or not. So there you go. Goaltending is back to full health, which means we are back to full health. Let's see what we do here against St. Louis and potentially Malkin if he's in net. Shootout win. Nice. Okay, so we took 2 of the 3 games against St. Louis, which is good. Still on a really bad note to end off this regular season, which is going to hurt our home ice, but maybe gives us a better run this year. Last 2 games of the season, Montreal and New York. Montreal is going to be a shootout loss. New York is going to be a 5-0 win. Pretty good. 50-24-8. We definitely fell off a little bit near the end of the season, but that's all right with me. We do finish 3rd place in the Central Division. The Blues have made the playoffs as well as the wild card team, I think. And you also have the Wild making it, which is where Tulipov ended up, I think. And the Jets end up finishing 1st place. So yeah, we slid a little bit, but maybe that gives us a psychological edge. Also, the Sharks end up finishing with 63 wins on the season. Damn, man. That's insane. 63, 13, and 6. That's a really good year. They definitely were the best team by far this season. Let me actually put my face on the screen so that way we can't see who ended up leading us in points yet, because I do not want to know who led us in points yet. All right, so now we are over to the standings. Let's take a look at some stuff here. Yeah, San Jose was by far the best team in the league. 20-point gap between them and the Jets. We finished the 5th best team in the league, but we were the 3rd best in our division. So our division is super, super strong. But we finished 5th place, which I'm okay with finishing in 5th place. I feel like that's a better spot than finishing 1st when you get into the postseason. In terms of goals for per game this season, we were one of the better offensive teams again. We are 4th place, only behind the Kraken, the Jets, and also San Jose. All right. Goals against per game. We were, where are we? We are the 8th best defensive team, I think that is. Or no, the 7th best defensive team. Not too bad. St. Louis with Malkin was the 2nd best defensive team, but to be honest, it doesn't make a difference really, I don't think. If we had Malkin, would we be flipping positions? I'm not too sure, but San Jose was by far the best defensive team. They allowed 11 less goals, so San Jose seems quite scary, but I think they're going to be a first-round exit potentially. Power play percentage. San Jose had the #1 power play as well. Damn, San Jose was like 1st in everything. Like we were a few years back, or quite a few years back, I should say. But we were #5 on the power play. Nice. 18.9%. I'm kind of surprised 18.9% is good enough to be a top 5 power play, though. Let's see. Our penalty kill, 87.2%, which is also top 5. All right, so we're a good defensive team on a lot of areas. So I think we didn't really have any weakness this year. Even though we didn't finish 1st place in anything, we did really good in most areas. San Jose also tied for 1st on the penalty kill with the Rangers, who finished in 30th. How did the Rangers finish 30th with that good of a penalty kill? That's insane. All right. In terms of shorthanded goals, we had 9 shorthanded goals. Pretty solid. 25, 12, and 4 on home ice. 25, 12, and 4 on the road. Wow. Interesting. 3, 4, and 3 in our last 10 games. So the fact that we had not the greatest last 10 games also makes me feel like our team could catch fire this offseason. Our leading point getter was only point per game in Kolar's. 82 points in 82 games. And this was a much healthier season for this team too, so I'm glad that we at least stayed healthy for the most part. But the fact we were one of the best offensive teams and we only had 1 guy point per game is pretty insane. But anyways, Risto, at the age of 37, 73 points. Pretty good year for Risto still, despite his age. 36 goals, 37 assists. Yeah, he's probably going to be retiring soon. He is still listed as a bottom 6 forward. Yeah, I think he'll probably end up retiring this offseason. Cashman on 65 points in 77 games. Cashman was great, but he's only an 82, 83 overall. So he can still produce with a lot of ice time, which is good. Which means once Risto is gone, him and Comrie should do good. Comrie had 60 points this year as well, which is a career high. He's signed for 1 more year after this year, so I'm glad to have that extra year of contract. But yeah, Comrie's getting better, which is the right time for it. Obviously, like I said, once Risto retires, those 2 guys could run our center core. Kopitz had a big year. 47 points for Maximilian Kopitz. All right. He was getting some power play time this year. His best year of his career. Do we have him signed multiple years? Yes, we do. Okay. That's a good little contract if he continues to produce like that. Hansen on 21 points, not bad. Ashton had 2 goals in his first 3 career NHL games, and it was a +4. All right, shout out to Alvin Ashton. Maybe he gets more of a chance in the postseason. Left wing side of things, Kolar's on the 82 points in 82 games. He is now down to an exact top 6, so he's starting to decline now too, as we kind of expected. He does not have that elite status anymore, but he's still producing pretty good. Obviously not as good as a few years ago, but obviously we've lost Stalbitz to retirements, and then all these other guys are dropping off, so it kind of makes sense. But shout out to Kolars. Delisle on 54 points in 82 games. Pretty good year for Delisle for 3rd line ice time and power time. I like it. Doughty kind of had a bit of a rough rookie season. We knew we had to have 1 line that wasn't good defensively, and it seems like it was the 4th line. Doughty was a -12. And he had 16 points. He is only averaging 7 minutes of ice time, but to be a -12 is pretty bad. Right wing side of things, Dunham on 80 points in +35. So a big year for Eugene Dunham again. He continues to be one of the better players on this team right now going forward. So he's definitely also kind of part of that next generation team. Him and Robertson and a couple other guys on like the defensive side of things. But pretty good stuff from Dunham. Like I said, pretty good replacement for Stelbitz. Robertson had 51 points, 25 goals. That's a pretty good year for a guy that's a grinder. And obviously he's a pending RFA, so we will probably have to pay the guy. Reefers on 21 points, minus 15. Yeah, that fourth line had a tough time. And then shout out to Enroth, who actually came in as a depth option and was really good. 6 points in 9 games, but was minus 6. So the plus minus not great, but the offensive stats are good. He also looks like he had a fight, which is kind of funny. And he had 3 power play points out of those 6 points. So definitely, yeah, 17 minutes of ice time. He got all the ice time after that injury to, who was it? Yeah, it was to Colt. Who was it to? Cashman. That's who the injury was to. Defensively / offensively, Ryder McLeod, 74 points as a forward / defenseman, I guess you could say. 12 power play points. So a big year again for Ryder McLeod, who is an RFA at the end of this offseason as well. So a couple big RFAs to pay this money to this offseason. But yeah, so far through 2 NHL seasons, McLeod's been good as a forward. So we'll see if he can bring it this postseason as well. But yeah, that's pretty good. Bell on 52 points. Well, shout out to Drew Bell. He's a DFD, but he picked up 52 points, which I believe is a career high for him at the age of 34. So I know we might have just paid the man a ton of money, but he's bringing the offense, which is not what I was anticipating. He's kind of almost simulates more of a two-way defenseman in a pure on DFD, but his plus minus obviously a lot worse than last year. But in terms of offensive production, I like that. He didn't even get really any power play time either. 1 power play point. So, yeah, Drew Bell has some offensive skill, and that's why it was good to re-sign him. Norena, 31 points. Pretty good year for Norena. He's 38 years old at this point. He has dropped down to a 79. Still has a top 4 role, but yeah, he's probably retiring this offseason, my guess. 28 points from Hudden, plus 24. Hunwick, 23 points, plus 25. Petterman, 15 points, plus 14. His morale has gone up because he's now a top 4 defenseman, so that's good to see. And then Carlotti, 12 points, plus 10. Not bad. We are a little bit of an aggressive defensive team, though, because a lot of these guys have a lot of penalty minutes. And then from a goaltending perspective, Gionta on a .911 save percentage. 6 shutouts this year for Jason Gionta, a 2.6 goals against. I don't think it's good enough for him to win the Vezina, but he definitely should be up there. And then Mathers as a backup wasn't super strong, but that's okay. That is okay. All right, stats around the league. Let's take a look at some league leaders. The best offensive player in the league was Bjorkstrand on Seattle with 120 points. Bochenski in San Jose, I think. Yeah, 115 points. Keeler, maybe San Jose as well. Yep, 112 points. And Rodin might be San Jose as well. Yep, 100 points. So San Jose, as the best team in the league, had 3 of the 100-point guys this season. The only one that wasn't was Bjorkstrand in Seattle. And yeah, it was a little bit of a low-scoring season. Very low-scoring season, actually. So maybe we're kind of going back into the low-scoring generation, in a sense, at this point in time. Because literally, there was some guys that were up there at 89 points in 82 games as a top 10 player. So, kind of crazy. Best goal scorer this season is by far Bjorkstrand. He had a 21-goal advantage over Bochenski. Only 350 goal scorers this season. All right. So, that's kind of crazy how the offense was this season. Interesting. Best defenseman is going to be Bissonnette with 85 points plus 26. Likely he's going to win the Norris. You could honestly make an argument for McLeod being up there as well. But since he was a forward, I don't think he'll ever win a Norris. But he could still end up winning a Norris as a forward, basically, because we didn't change him over to a forward. Yeah, he's definitely one of those guys that could win it if Bissonnette starts to decline a little bit, which I don't know if he will. But what's kind of crazy is Drew Bell was actually a top 10 defenseman in points. I was not expecting him to be up there, for sure. In terms of the goaltending numbers, this is where it gets interesting. Sawchuk on San Jose, 49 wins. Wow. Most shutouts. Lukowicz in Anaheim. Best save percentage by a starter is Lukowicz in Anaheim with a 924 save percentage. Malkin, our former goaltender, had a 923 this season. Then you also have Sawchuk on a 922, but through way more games. And you also have Chipchura. So Gionta wasn't fully up there, but if you scroll down here, he's probably, yeah, he's right up here. He's just as good as these guys, even though he's the oldest goalie probably. And then the best goals against average by a starter is Sawchuk. So I think Sawchuk is going to be maybe the favorite because he had one of the best save percentages and he has the best goals against. There's definitely an argument for a lot of these other goaltenders, but I don't think our former goaltender Malkin's going to win the Vezina of the season. And yeah, him and Gionta had pretty similar numbers. Obviously, Malkin had a much better save percentage, but Gionta had more shutouts. The goals against is pretty similar. I don't think it was much of an issue letting go of Malkin, because we couldn't run both of them. We just couldn't do that for another year. Best rookie this season is Maloney in Chicago, 59 points. All right. So there is all that. Now the question is, who are we going to be playing in the first round of the playoffs? And are we going to get cheesed in the first round, or are we not? We are going to be taking on the Minnesota Wild, which means we are going to be taking on Tulipov in the first round. We do not have home ice advantage because we fell off so much during the last little bit of the season, but we are going to take on Minnesota. We play Minnesota so often in the postseason that this is almost like a rivalry matchup in a way. Now, regular season comparison, you can see, though, we are both top 10 offensive teams in the league. We are 4th, they were 6th. We are 7th in goals against, they were 5th in goals against. We were 5th on the power play, they were 13th on the power play, despite being only 2.9% less than us, which is kind of crazy. And then penalty kill, we were 5th, they were 18th. So we had better special teams. 5-on-5 were pretty similar. So that's kind of interesting. But yeah, we play Minnesota like almost every season. Like, I feel like the last few years, like if I go back to my videos in a sec, let me just take a look here. Yeah, we literally played Minnesota, I think, like 2 times over the last 2 years. So this is the 3rd time in 3 years, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So let's take a look at how they are as a team, because we already know what they did during the regular season now. What do they have on the roster? We know that they have Tulipov, I think, still, unless they got rid of him, but doubt they did. But let's take a look at the Wild. So here is Minnesota. Todd Rupert, Renberg, and Drake. I think Drake might be new to this team. Drake might be new. Yeah, he was a signing that, actually not a signing, a trade with Detroit. So that's one new piece from last year. Renberg and Rupert were there last year. Kondratyov, I think, was there as well. McElhaney and Nurmi. I'm pretty sure Nurmi was there last season. He led them, it said, in points with 83 points. Yeah, 83 points this year. He's still a really good player. Third line has Nicholas Booth. Was it Sergei? Yeah, Sergei Korobov and Nikolai Arkhipov. And a fourth line of Kevin Sumal. What's your name? Maxwell Altshuler and Ruslan Afanasenkov. I feel like some of these guys are new. Like, I don't think Altshuler and Sumal were there last year. But I feel like this Mill 6, most of them were there last year. McElhaney might be new. Let's take a look at that. Yeah, he's new. He was also a trade deadline acquisition. So they made a lot of acquisitions. This guy is a very physical specimen. Over 100 penalty minutes this season. Damn. He's a two-way forward. Okay. Interesting. In terms of the defensive core, there is Tulipov. He is an 83 at 33. How good of a season did Tulipov have with the Wild? 34 points. So similar numbers to last year. Less games. Did miss some due to injury. But yeah, Tulipov's a good defenseman. Did suck to let him go, but at least he has found himself a home for the rest of his career. He also got a clause in his deal. So yeah, shout out to him. It'll be interesting facing off against him, considering he's been with us for so long. But they also have Del Rivera, McCabe, what's your first name? Tony McCabe, all right. Rod Winther, what's your name? Casey Moss, and that was Braden Polchek, yeah, that's what I thought. So this defensive core is not very strong on paper. Maybe it has an injury, but they were one of the better defensive teams during the season, so that's kind of scary. From a goaltending perspective, it's still Blackburn, and Blackburn's pretty good. So maybe that's why they were good defensively. He had the same save percentage as Gionta this season. In playoffs, he's not been super consistent. And then their backup, Ross Lupul? Rick Lupul. Okay. In terms of their depth options, they have Junior Germain. I think he was in their lineup last year. Tija Ginla has dropped off to a 75, but he's still there. And they also have Russell Frigon. All right. So they don't have any injuries, which is kind of surprising based on that defensive core. But I think they have a good offensive core for sure. It's not the craziest offensive core you'll ever see, but it's good. The defensive core is kind of like a little bit below average, my guess. And our goaltending's good. So I think it'll definitely be a good matchup for us. Obviously, I think we're the better of the two teams still, even though we finished lower in the season. It's because they went 9-1 going into the playoffs. Meanwhile, we had a little bit of a struggle. So maybe we'll find ourselves in the next round just because we had that struggle at the end of the year. Not too sure. I also do actually want to take a look at our player stats during the regular season too, because I did know a couple of guys, but I want to still see their entire team if possible. Maybe also see how we did against them during the regular season just for something extra as well. I got to start doing that more often because it's kind of fun to prime up a playoff matchup. But in terms of their forwards, yeah, it was Nurmi and Renberg that had 83 points this season. They're really good. Rupert had 78, Korobov 71. So they had some pretty good depth scoring, it looks like. All right, obviously they brought in a couple guys via trade. And then from a defensive standpoint, I mean, this defensive core simulated good. Tulipov led the way for their defensive core. Del Rivera is at 80 overall, had 29 points, which is kind of surprising. A lot of guys had good plus minus. And then from a goaltending perspective, Blackburn was really good. Lopel was actually even better as a backup. So, interesting indeed. Okay. Let's take a look at our matchups during the season, and then that will be it for this episode. But we would have played them a few times this season. Kind of curious on who was good and who wasn't. So if we go back to October, when did we play them first? When did we play our first matchup against them? Oh man, our first game against them during the season, we lost 6-1. So that's not ideal. I mean, it is regular season, so it doesn't matter in the playoffs, but still kind of interesting to note that. So that was back on November 26th. All right. Let's see. When else did we play them? It would have been two more times likely. Yeah, 6-3 win, so that's a good response after that 6-1 loss. So that's February the 7th. And then the last game we had against them would have been here somewhere. Let's see. There should be a third game. Did I not see a third game? Because there's no way we only played them two times this season, right? 6-3. I might be blind now. Trying to see if I could see it or not. Maybe we only did play them two times, which would be kind of surprising. Yeah, I don't see the other meeting. Which is kind of strange. I saw a preseason meeting, but let me actually look at the stats. Let me go to the goaltender for a second. I want to see what Gionta did against the Wild during the regular season. See if he actually played in 3 games or something, because he would have likely got most of the starts. So if we go to split stats and we go against Minnesota, let's see. 2 games, an 862. So he did play that first game and he was pretty bad in it, but that second game he was much better, I would guess. All right. Did Mathers get to play against him at all? Out of curiosity. It's going to be an interesting matchup. Obviously, like I said, the regular season simulation doesn't matter too much. It looks like he only played 29 minutes, so he came in relief and was really good, actually, in that game that we must have won or something, or actually lost. I don't know exactly, but looks like Mathers was the better of the 2 goaltenders against the Wild, which is kind of surprising, but will be an interesting playoffs. I think it's a pretty even matchup, but I think we might have the edge because we kind of stumbled our way into the playoffs. Meanwhile, they kind of cruised into the postseason, so... Anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of Albuquerque Aliens Draft the Glory franchise mode. So in next episode, we'll take it to the first round of playoffs against the Minnesota Wild, as we look for maybe one more shot at a Stanley Cup potentially, because obviously if we lose like Ristolainen, Arena, and such to the retirements this offseason, is the team just as good next season? It could be, potentially, because we might still have a good enough center depth, but... kind of a little bit worried, obviously, if that ends up being the case, but I think our team is good enough this postseason that we should have a good run. We are one of the best teams in a lot of areas, so I think we can hopefully continue that into the postseason. So I think down below, and I'll see you guys next time.